Thank you and welcome back to the show. We're moving straight to the next segment of the show. We're talking about the big story tonight, and we're kicking off straight by bringing you a report from the Punch newspaper talking about the redesigning and redistribution of the Naira. Conventional macroeconomics has brought about the congregation of knowledge in a single source of truth, and from here the divergence into societies and nations to say that postulations and principles of economics should be taken barefaced and applied to solve problems in their minimalist sense without a recourse to the unique journey, local atmosphere, and the availability of enabling systems and tools is surely an invitation to a massive failure of both policy programs and pushbacks on societal goals of growth and development. The long and short of this story is that the Central Bank of Nigeria has announced that President Muhammadu Buhari, retired, has approved the design, production, and reissuance of the local currency in 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes, with the new note to begin circulation by December 15, 2022. Not a few murmurings and bickerings have emanated from the public. There's a lot more we're going to be talking about tonight. We're taking a look at the decision of President Muhammadu Buhari, and by extension, the Central Bank of Nigeria holding that autonomy to decide perhaps the tenure of when the currency should be redesigned and perhaps be redistributed. But there's a lot of hula baloo about these decisions, some for and against. We have an economist and, of course, financial expert here in the building talking about Misang Yama. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. It's been a while.
Thank you, Eddie.
Like a quarter of a continuation of the lecture we last had from you.
Yes.
Let's start from the basics. At what point would we say the Nigerian economy is peaked at this time?
Well, thank you so much for that question. I think it is important for us to first appreciate the trending issues. And fundamentally, we are looking at the currency redesign issue. Of course, that is what's making the rounds now. And expectedly, we have the issues of those who are for and those who are against that policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And for me, the fundamental issue is not so much about who is against or for. The critical issue we must consider is whether the central bank has the right to do that. Is it within the purview of the bank to do that? That is the country's apex monetary authority. Do they have the right to do that? Of course they do, according to the Act of the Central Bank of Nigeria. That is the issue. And then the next issue we must ask ourselves is that such a fundamental financial and policy monetary issue naturally should carry all the stakeholders along. Because Zainab Ahmed, who is the Minister of Finance, has come to say she just hurt like every other Nigerian. But that sounds very funny, because if you look at it from the angle of this Minister of Finance being represented on the board of the CBN, you begin to ask yourself, how can the Minister of Finance come out to make such a statement? In fact, she addressed the press to tell Nigerians and the world that she just hurt like every other Nigerian. But can I tell you that in the act of the CBN, the act that established the CBN...
Is it the revised or the reviewed act of 2007?
Of course.
Okay.
In that act, the permanent secretary, statutorily, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance is on the board of the CBN. Who has a boss in the finance minister? So this lack of, for me, what I see in all of this is lack of coordination between the head, or the lack of synergy, rather. Let me use the word synergy. Lack of synergy between the head of the fiscal authority, which in this case is the Minister of Finance, and the head of the monetary authority, which in this case is the CBN governor. So there's a lack of synergy there. And when you have such discordant tones from the heads of these key economic managers of the country, it doesn't speak well of the economy. So to respond to your question, at what point? We'll get to that point. The point where the Nigerian economy can be smooth sailing is when there is a proper synergy between these two key economic managers. That is the point.
What could have brought the disparity in terms, looking at what the Minister of Finance had put out, which we might not repeat on this program, but the fact that there is no cohesion at this point in time, there is disparity in the decision, as integral as it were, in the aspect of making economic decisions for Nigeria. By the review of the 2007 Act, 2007, it shows that the Central Bank of Nigeria holds the straw.
That is true.
So
now let me say
what
this.
interest is the Ministry of Finance?
No, the minister
in this case.
Yes, the minister or even the ministry is a stakeholder. That is the truth. It's a stakeholder. It's one of the key fundamental and key stakeholders in terms of monetary policy decisions and all of that. But the question here is this. The minister has her subordinates on the board of the CBN. Of course, the permanent secretary is on that board. So do you now say the CBN didn't do well to have reported to the minister when she has a representative on the board? That is the logic for me.
Okay, let's take a look at what all of these redesigning and the redistribution of the currency at this point. Let's take a look at the impact it would create. Because no sooner than we heard the announcement of the redesign of the currency, there was a sudden spike in dollar. What does that mean?
Of course, that is natural. First, for an economy that is predominantly an import-based economy.
You mean a mono economy?
Not really a mono. Now let's not get to that yet.
We're just dependent on one source of.
Yeah, that's a mono product economy you're talking about, but that's not my response.
Okay.
Now, what I'm trying to say is that for economy that is predominantly an import-based economy, because Nigeria, even at this level, we are still a net importer of food. You know, we are still a net importer of food. So you expect that since we import almost everything into this country, and now you look at the fact that the naira itself has been on a free fall before now. There's been that regular and consistent fall of the naira against the greenback, that's the dollar. Now, such an announcement would trigger a lot of agitation and anxiety.
Okay.
That's, for me, it's natural. It doesn't appear to me, I didn't take it as anything, strange, because I knew that was going to happen when the CBN announced that. But the question for me, Nigerians, we must appreciate and ask ourselves is that, does the CBN actually have the right to do that? They do. It's within the purview of the CBN to redesign the currency, to manage the currency.
Within a certain tenure?
Within a certain time, between 5 and 8 years. Okay. But when last did the CBN redesign the currency? The last time the CBN did that was in 2014, when only the 100 naira note was redesigned to commemorate our centenary anniversary. That's when the last time we did, and it was only the 100 naira that was redesigned. So for almost 20 years running, Nigerian currency has not been redesigned. And of course, the sophistication in technology today with 3D and all of that. So criminals can even, those who are expert in counterfeiting, I'm not speaking for the CBN, but I'm only being rational, being objective.
So are you saying we have more black money out there than we have monies in the bank?
No, that is not the point I'm making. The point I'm trying to make is that the CBN, in their wisdom, the governor and his team, in their own wisdom, perhaps looked at the currencies in circulation, as they have said, the currency in circulation, we should have over 3.2 trillion naira out there in cash. Okay. But the CBN said that what is out there outside the bank vaults, outside the bank, the DMO, deposit money banks, the DMB, sorry, deposit money banks, what is out there is within the region of 2.7 trillion out there. This is the amount that is unbanked in the hands of individuals.
So can we now say that they bring these monies back to the bank?
That is exactly what they're trying to do, to reduce liquidity in the Nigerian economy. But I will tell you something outside that.
Okay.
Listen to this. I find a contradiction in that argument. I find it a bit illogical. You know why? Because this same CBN has been involved in what we call quantitative easing by way of printing money. When you talk about what I talked about the last time I came here in July, you remember we talked about ways and means advances to the federal government. Yeah. It's about advancing money, advances made to the federal government to finance deficits. And these funds are released to the central, to the federal government to spend. Now, as we speak, it has raised, I think it's over 20 trillion Nigerian naira that the CBN has advanced to the federal government. And that is one of the reasons why we have the inflation trend, the level of inflation we have now in the country.
The federal government is not remitting?
No, what I am saying is that, you know, in the act of the CBN, I think in section 38 or so, yes, section 38 or thereabout, the CBN can advance, you know, loan, but it's a loan to the federal government. Yes, to the federal government to finance deficits. But what I am saying is that when the CBN said they have over 2 trillion
out there,
2.7 trillion out there unbanked funds in the hands of people, and because of that there is so much, you know, liquidity in the system, and they want to mop up liquidity back into the system to reduce inflation, to cut down the level of inflation. Because as we speak, inflation is at the point is 17 years high as we speak. 17 years high. Which is 20.8%.
Yes.
Then food inflation is over 23% already as we speak in the economy.
Okay, so let's go straight, sorry for cutting you. Let's go straight to the buffer system of seeing that in the midst of this calamity, this economic crisis, at this point in time, what hope should we be hearing from you as an economist? If you are in a position to advise government, what would that be?
Well, fundamentally, we should look at what are the causes of this inflation. What are the issues here? We, as a country, we are still a net, I said it earlier, a net importer of food. Now, if Nigeria is still a net importer of food, in 2021, it is estimated that Nigeria imported food worth over 2 trillion naira. A country with a population of over 200 million people, with a vast arable land across the country. Now, we are still importing food. So one of the areas we must tackle is to look at how we can self-sustain ourselves in terms of agricultural products.
But the federal government started that with the rice project.
But have we achieved that? Now, the last time I came here, we talked about that, and I said to you,
they proposed that they have reduced the tonnage that they used to import in the past.
Yeah, but we still have porous borders. We still have porous borders in this country, and there's some massive smuggling of rice into the country.
Foreign rice?
Yes, foreign rice. We still have it even in the market. You still see foreign rice in the market, when it's supposed to be a contraband good. But you still find it in the open market in Nigeria.
And it's competing. It's competing.
That's what I'm saying. It's a fundamental problem.
Okay.
And again, we still have the challenge of, look at what happened recently. In fact, what the current problem in Nigeria today is the flood problem. What is the cause of the flood problem? When I heard the Minister of Water Resources last week, he said openly, before live cameras, he said that the reason for the flood is because we have so much rain. That the reason is because of the rain. According to him, rain from heaven. But he contradicted himself when he said the annual rainfall rate this year is a little above 1%. But the same man said the flood is because of rain. But that is not true. We are all aware, I'm not a meteorologist, but we are all aware, we have the report. It's in the it's in the public domain that the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon was opened this year. That is the truth. And that Lagdo Dam, the Cameroon government completed building of the Lagdo Dam in 1984, in 1982, 40 years ago. And there was a bilateral agreement that Nigeria should build what we call the Dancing Hausa Dam in Adamawa State that will hold the water when the Lagdo Dam is open.
Oh, there was a bilateral agreement.
Yeah. Yes, upstream.
Okay.
So the Nigerian dam.
So the impact would be reduced
by
the time it gets to the Bay.
Of course, yes. But unfortunately, as it is in everything in Nigeria,
no roadmap.
No, practically nothing has been done in terms of building the Dancing Hausa Dam in Adamawa State. That is the truth.
And that's where we are right
now.
Yes,
and the challenge now, because I'm responding to your question, what will you do if you were to advise the government? First, let's do things right in this country. It is important that we do things right. Because if that dam, the Dancing Hausa Dam in Adamawa State, contracts have been awarded year after year.
But nothing is done.
Nothing has been done.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about politics. Do you think all of these economic crisis is going to affect the mode with which we're going into the general elections in 2023, looking at talking about vote buying, which is one of the reasons some people on the streets have said, yeah, politicians are not going to have money enough to buy votes. So that's one of the reasons the federal government opted with the redesigning of the currency.
Well, that sounds quite plausible for me. It's a very good idea. But you know, these people have a way of beating the system. They develop their antics to beat the system. You see, let me say this to you. Nigerians at this time, we have the opportunity to interrogate the programs of those who have put themselves forward to lead us. What are their programs? Now, I have a reservation about us looking at only the president, the man who is contesting for the president, up to the State House of Assembly member. We should interrogate their programs, their visions, their projects. What exactly are they bringing to the table? You want to make laws. You want to lead your people, even at the local level. What exactly do you have on the table? What can we look at on the radar to say this is exactly what this man wants to achieve? We should interrogate their programs. It is important. And then for those who have a history, those who have history of leadership in this country, can we look at the antecedents? History is very important.
But we had the Tinubus or the Jagabans of Lagos say he's going to continue from where President Muhammadu Buhari stops.
Of course,
don't you see him continuing with that if he happens to be the president? What I'm saying in essence is that we've had all this conversation. It's not like they've not been talking. They have been saying stuff. But do you think the people, the Nigerian people, have listened to what they've said? When Tinubu said, we're going to start from where Buhari stops. The questions are, where is Buhari stopping? With inflation of 20.5% and
20.8.
Okay, now, and the other man is saying what you said, moving a country from consumption to production, and we've also had the article said it's the turn of the Northerners to elect their president. Do you think Nigerians are really thinking about who they are going to vote for in 2023?
Let me tell you this. I give it to the Ariwa Joint Committee. Okay. You know, sometimes last week rather, they're called the front
line politicians.
Yes, yes.
Candidates.
Yes. Yeah. 3 of them or 4. 4 of them were invited. I think 5 of them were invited rather, but I think 3 showed up. Atiku was there, Tinubu was there, and then P2B was there. That was quite engaging because I listened to them, I watched them. Quite engaging. And I also want to give it to ICANN, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigerians, because they also invited them to come and express themselves. I also give it to NBA, Nigerian Bar Association. Yeah. We should have more of such engagements.
Professional organizations.
Civil society organizations, and all that. And even social political organizations at different levels, like Ariwa did, or Haneze should do that. You know, Afenifere should do that. You know, my people in the Niger Delta and the South should do that. In the Middle Belt, they should do that. Engage them. Let's hear them out. Let's listen to them. Let's engage them, interrogate their programs on those cardinal issues plaguing Nigeria at this time. That is the truth. And you can't Of course, when you listen to them, you know exactly who has something to offer.
Okay, who will bail the cat? The economic crisis. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel with all of this happening?
No, Nigeria's situation is not hopeless. No, our situation is not hopeless. Now, let me tell you something. I keep saying this, and I've told you this a couple of times.
60 seconds.
No, yes, I've told you this severally, that look, let us not demonize borrowing, because that is one of the problems we have. We keep saying Nigeria is borrowing. Nigeria, look, debt is not an indicator of a weak economy. Because I will tell you this for free.
Okay.
That in America, the United States of America, the largest economy in the world, their debt to GDP ratio is 124%, almost 125% of their GDP. You know, then the last time I came, I told you about Japan. In the Japanese economy, their debt to GDP ratio is the highest in the world, which is 234%. Then in China, the second largest economy in the world, is about 54% to its GDP, the debt. Then in Canada, you have about 83% to its GDP. So it is not about debt as such. Okay. It is about what we do with what we borrow.
Okay.
That's the truth. Now, the challenge we have in Nigeria, but I still believe our case is not hopeless, is that our revenue streams are depleting by the day and our debts are increasing. Because in next year's budget, the budget of consolidation and fiscal consolidation, according to the way it was christened, budget of fiscal consolidation and transition, our borrowing there is 8.8 trillion naira. That's what they want to borrow, the debt profile there.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to continue this conversation. We have to make way for another program. I want to say a very big thank you to Misang Iyama. It's always a delight having you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Heidi, thank you so much for inviting me.
We can never have enough of you. We think we can have some of these